Hey everybody, so we are here in this September's sketchbook tour. So I'm going to do both the iPad tour and then the sketchbook tour all together. And that's what we're going to see. I think it was kind of a low month for the material in sketchbook because there were there was a lot of work stuff involved, but mostly there's a lot of little mini hyperfixations, and I don't take that word lightly. What I mean is that I definitely would watch something that would deeply affect me, and then I would have to watch something else just to replace it in my heart, and that I don't think about it endlessly and dream about it. And so, yeah. Reading a lot of, we finished Last of Us 2. Watched my husband play it. Played some, and it's not even just about like Hamilton stuff, but there's a little bit of like sketching out here, the story stuff. Sorry for the glare, and yeah, it's also some Horizon Zero Dawn stuff, and The Promised Neverland. Those were some very intense narratives that I think as time went on, they were all very, very good. They didn't get to that emotional trauma that, The Last of Us did, but, in some ways, I think, because I'm a softie, I always try to, I don't try to, get involved with the fandom as much as, I'm trying to make things to cope with what I've watched or seen on TV or played in video game stories and stuff. So, yeah, it's a lot of trying to get back into drawing things and not, as one of the other patrons said on their work, they also say what helps with making, Madeline has also mentioned, when you're drawing something, you don't have to make it like the best thing in the world that you've ever made. Like, I need to test my abilities, and it's just you're recording thoughts and feelings and things that are fleeting that otherwise you can't express. So you do it with images, right? So they're right about that, and so that's what I'm doing. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of those things where I think I kind of fell in love with it late, and then because I saw my husband play it, it's amazing all over again. It's very hopeful as a story, but it's one of those things where narratives where is it perhaps possible in a world in the future? Perhaps. I think also because I'm going to say some things, a lot of people have also, it's generally one of these really, really cool, visually rich, interesting characters and worlds and stuff like that, and really good robot design. But also, some people have complained not complained, but really they brought up, why are they appropriating certain Native American imagery when making, white people in dreads and stuff? And I hope they're not dreads, but I love that Aloy has red hair, but what if she was a woman of color? I know the game was developed in Europe and stuff, and so you're gonna see some, there's it's exotic if it's white people with dress, but I think, what if she had dark reddish hair? What if she had black hair? What if she was darker skin? What if certain aspects of her, I don't know, her armor kind of were their own thing and not just from Native American garb. So, what would happen to that? And then there's Emma from The Promised Neverland. That sure was a story. It was a lot more positive and a lot more light than I thought it would be. It's a lot more hopeful. It's very much from a Japanese society perspective, but it's also, they took the girl character and made her very idealized, and I think it's important to have those kind of figures sometimes so that you don't lose hope in a bunch of stories. And yeah, there's a lot more bullet journaling here. If you're not interested in that, you can go ahead and skip ahead. But once again, using this really shows up really nice under the light. The metallic watercolors. I got into a rut of layering things because, well, let's look at how she's thick now. Let's see how long ago it's been since it's 2019, so that was last year. It's been like a whole year. She's getting kind of thick. It's getting harder to close her, so I try not to layer too much stuff, which is, you know, you shouldn't be afraid of doing that, but mostly I'm just afraid of the book not being able to close at all. Look, she thick, so yeah, but let's not go too far ahead. Yeah, just regular stuff. I'm trying to teach myself not the live, laugh, love kind of font, but it's interesting to practice calligraphy again. You do upstrokes and then downward strokes. This is where I'm doing some of the more character design type of work. From the Realm Jumper story that I was scribbled down in the beginning from here. And then, you know, I would say it's a semi sort of like, not super ancient civilization, but one probably where, you know, there's less oppression, but like a lot of like, if we're going for like completely like societies that have done the least destruction on themselves so that everybody fulfills their role in society, you know, you have to rely on people with all genders to, you know, work together to help one another. And so you'd think that their clothes would be very utilitarian and very sturdy, not meant to be like super titillating or anything like that, but like, you know, children of all genders like work together and are raised together and expect to do like work equally. And so you'd think that the very sturdy, good clothing, like handmade items, like, you know, bags and shoes, would be very sturdy for, you know, everybody of all ages to do stuff together. Now Len is a completely different narrative, so how would she look like? Would if it was like post-colonial, even the women are encouraged to be academic and everything, you know, they still gotta wear dresses and then the shoes and stuff. And but, you know, like if you've watched Disney's Treasure Planet, the 70-30 style, in that some of it is a little bit slightly futuristic, like this wouldn't exist maybe unless you were eccentric, but you know, maybe it would. So character design. How old would these two ladies be? Let's see. Middle school age, probably like 12 or 13. She would be 14 or 15 maybe. She looks a little short because her head's very big and her eyes are very big, but it's, you know, it's the influence of the Avatar: The Last Airbender anime character design where everyone's hella short and kind of, you know. Oh, now a seemingly boring page, but I think I've started to get super intimidated by drawing into this book, so there is some mentions of menstruation here, so if you're uncomfortable with that, then you can skip ahead in about 5 minutes. But yeah, some really like some cute draws. I'm gonna turn it up here. There. Yeah, but I've been drawing in other sketchbooks, and it's like, whoops, I can't do that there. There's still some pages left, so I'm like, you shouldn't force yourself to draw when you just don't feel it, but if you want to continue exercising your drawing muscles, you know, it's like, I gotta get out of this headspace. So I this day I just refused to draw in the sketchbook, so I drew somewhere else when I was planning some commission stuff, but I really liked the page layout, and so guess where it was? It was on the back of the instruction manual of this to assemble my desk. So we're not going to use the rest of the paper, so I tore it off. But yeah, sketchbooks are meant to be like really weird like things anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of like laying out and, you know, some stuff about that. This was the Avatar illustration that are for my friends on Patreon and for the patrons on there. Girl has the power to use her menstruation to bring it to evil dudes that catcall her and stuff. So yeah, no spoiler, that's what's going on. So these were commission. And then here's a picture of me and Husbando, or husband, and things like that. It's also always kind of weird to having to explain, like, well, this is exactly what you see. Well, sometimes it is, and then other times it's like, well, you see what's happening here, and then other times I'm gonna have to explain myself. This planner did not work out. I did not end up like using any of the previous pages, so I thought, let me just use it here. Ooh, some interesting Last of Us story stuff. We'll go more into that later. I should have emphasized that sketch a little bit more, but this is a really cute page that I really, not even like a cute page, but I really, really, really like. I talked about this maybe on the podcast. I really, really enjoyed the Last of Us series. Now, this is my experience with it. This is what's been going on. You can continue to look at this and then just mute it if you don't want to hear me talk. But I watched and played the first Last of Us, and of course I got attached to the characters. I had been spoiled for what happens in the final 15 minutes of the final 15 minutes of the game. And screw that. And I was no longer interested in seeing what's happening because I knew that you were basically going to commit a war crime and it makes sense why Joel did it, spoiler alert, but at the same time, no excuse. And then it goes on to create another chain of events in the second game, which a bunch of fanboys also cried over, and they thought like, how good this. But for me, I think it makes sense. Oh boy, here comes the consequences of my actions, and I think that makes sense within the game. And I am not the biggest fan of Ellie and the acts that she committed, but it makes sense why she did. And she's basically also a traumatized teenager who's fighting against, her guilt and how she treated her adoptive father. And so it's all that mixed up in there, and plus another girl that lost her father too, aka Abby. I don't care what the fanboys say and how they dislike her. That is their problem, find Jesus, etc. But I really enjoyed Abby's arc as well. I adore Lev. So this was basically like, in a world, it's basically the story is just to come and see, very basically they think about the worst violations of human history and how humans would have made it worse. And then, but the only thing I maybe would have complained about, and my husband kind of complained about that too, was the constant back and forth between the two characters. For me, it made sense. He did not really like that, the fact that they went back and forth on the both characters at the same time. And so it's a bit of a whiplash. So it's like, oh no, I have to kill the dog, and that was the dog that Ellie killed, and then now I get to play with this dog. And it's like, I'm looking at the game developers, which I wish that they had to crunch time a lot of these games. So I hope those artists and those animators and software programmers, they got compensated properly, because goddamn. But yeah, I could tell it was emotionally manipulative, but they did it so effectively that I can forgive it. Regard the stories about forgiveness or whatever, but it worked on me because I'm a sap. So yeah, I'm getting back into designing things, and when you layer textures and stuff together, some things kind of get hidden by the wayside. I cannot tell you how many times I regretted putting these very fancy, beautiful stickers that I got from Sticky Club, and then regretted where I put them. I was like, no, and then I had to rip them off and then put them somewhere else. So would in the future, the game, we're about 7 or 10 years away from whatever is going to happen in the next game, would Ellie in her 30s or 40s, would she be still willing to sacrifice herself if there was someone that was able to develop the vaccine? Like Akira, from the movie Akira, as a being, can she transcend that sort of thing? How does she mature as an adult? I doubt, because my husband, he loves when characters self-sabotage. It's yes, give me the angst, and me, I'm just no, why would you do this? I hate this. And then there's her, spoiler alert, her baby. So this next one, yeah, that's this ranty version of what I was going to say. This next one is what would we do? Ellie can't just possibly be the only one there. I know it was 20 years after the outbreak, but what if there were other people with different variations of immunity? What if there was a clicker whose body mutated, but his brain remained intact, his soul, his humanity? And what if he had a daughter that years later, she's not immune or anything, but in order to stay alive, she's been consuming the mushrooms that grow in his area, and then the mushrooms that grow there are not harmful to humans. You know, like this is questions. And another complaint, like I'm not here to complain about the game because I really like the game. Yeah, that is my opiniones. But I also wish they would have added more mythology into, like, I don't watch a lot of The Walking Dead anymore because I don't, it's too much, but like a lot of mythology and how as the world changes, as time passes and decades pass by, how would we see other people who are also immune, or how they adapt and evolve uh, with the changing biosphere? You know, how does that happen? You know, like nature's healing, like, you know, animals are coming back. Yes, but like also like humans are going extinct because they're eating each other alive because they're the petty humans being disgusting. But like how, like I'm thinking about narratives in terms of like Nausicaa. Would Ellie be able to see like different kinds of like mutated? Are we gonna see more of those like human rights violations where like basically military people are going to come and then just kill these like small population of people who are essentially the key to like curing human, like we just, I don't want to think about that because there's enough of those stressful issues in real life, and why would I want to play a video game like that? But here I am playing a video game about that. But yeah, it's on a technical term. This would be partly because I'm trying to show off the sketch, but you know, I start to think more about contouring and according to like layers and stuff. It's like, yeah, I could just use pencil, but the problem is this paper is kind of has a slight like slip to it, and so it doesn't have a lot of tooth, which even if it did, it's gonna be hard on the aging of the sketch. And so what do? I go back over with it, and then I can kind of plus it, you know, make the sketch a little better, make it have more clarity, and you know, beef up the silhouettes and stuff. And that kind of is a good exercise. Now, enough about Last of Us. I'm going to go on that tangent, but this is a little bit of a mental health stuff again. You know, warning, but it's been like, it's mostly me just chronicling. Like I was trying to be better about, you know, eating healthier and working out and stuff. But I'm sort of also going to a place where, well, sometimes I'll slip. Sometimes, you know, with everything happening right now, it's hard to sort of like focus on improving myself when you see that the future is getting worse and worse, especially for people that are more vulnerable than you. How do you stay hopeful? The point is that you try your best within the power that you can, and you know, this time is precious. There are people that have been living on less, so we try our best to do what we can with that. So yeah, I'm trying to convince myself and be hopeful. There's lots happening right now, y'all, so I'm just, you know, trying to keep it together because I have the ability to. I have certain resources. I'm okay. So that's all I can do, and I can keep making the stories that I make. This is more like the Nino stuff, but to explain context, we're gonna rewind. The stories of the two girls, one lived in the past and then one lives in her present time. The Rika, and then Lynn is like, one lives and she's an immigrant, and then this is how society kind of treats neighbors if you're different. Sure, she comes from an immigrant family. How do the neighbors treat her? You know, since they're in a more westernized, industrialized world, they're treated as outsiders. That's the kind of like feeling I had when we moved to certain neighborhoods. Try to say hello, no one says hello. It's a little bit different here in Texas, but yeah. Well, compared to, you know, you live with your neighbors, and in your homeland, you just give each other food, and then you trade food. They're rowing their boat to nearby island, sort of small mini village, and they don't get a lot of like, you know, the deep sea stuff, so they're trading and then getting some stuff for fruit, and that's how they get their fruit. So some world building on that. But yeah, as an immigrant person, I think like I moved here with my husband, and I have to really, really make an effort to make sure that the neighbors warm up to me, and so I don't seem like Not that I seem like more threatening than anybody else, but I don't want to be treated this way, so I have to put up the effort to make sure the neighbors they be trusting and stuff. But I miss my Filipino neighbors. I miss being able to, and also because coronavirus doesn't help at none. I want to keep them safe. I miss being able to go to my Filipino neighbor's house and just trade food and then do it safely. But yeah, that's it. That's it for the sketchbook portion of the tour. I will join you for the iPad section of the tour. Thank you for staying for this part, and stay tuned for part 2.